Greetings there, everyone. This is Kais here for the first episode of AusterCast. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you'll enjoy this first episode on the Great War. Before we get started, I want to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Kais, and I'll be your host for this part of the AusterCast, which is AusterHistory, which will be, as you probably can guess, about history. And I personally call myself a historical hobbyist, which is where I basically look into history and for fun, and research into it and read and watch videos about it and such. I consider it's pretty nice, but so apologies if I making mistakes here, because I probably won't be as thorough as most academics will be, but I'll try my best to make sure this I give you as much accurate information as possible. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I have the links to my I'll make sure to have the links to my sources in the description box. So if you want to learn more or want to fact check me, then go there. So without further ado, let's get started. The Great War is one of the American psyche is one of the more forgotten wars. At least in comparison to the wars like Vietnam, Revolutionary, World War II, and the Civil War, where there are more defining moments. While it's not forgotten, it's definitely a lot less talked about than the war I mentioned it before. But it definitely has a lot more. Definitely like a very defining moment in world history. It basically made Europe into what it would be, and it actually and without it, actually, I would personally say the U.S. wouldn't have become the world power it is today, because not only because it led up to the Second Great War, but also because it what's it called, helped the U.S. gain more influence in the world by it joining in with the European powers. But that's not what we're going to be talking about today. Though we're going to be talking more about how the alliances in Europe caused the World War and how they came to be, which is excuse me, where we need to understand that we would have to go back to right after Napoleon was defeated in the Napoleonic Wars, with the last coalition. The last coalition of the countries were in it were Austria, Prussia, Great Britain, and Russia. Those were the four countries in the last coalition that defeated Napoleon and sent him off to the island of St. Helena, I think it was. And basically they made this treaty called the Vienna Settlement, wherein they would basically try to maintain the balance of power in Europe, and the four main countries would watch over France to make sure it wouldn't go Napoleonic once again and start wreaking havoc across Europe. Eventually, this alliance between the four the four countries became a lot more than that, and it actually did include France later on, which made it become the triumvirate, as it was called, of the four countries plus France, as I mentioned before. And they use this power to make sure that Europe would maintain its peace, and all countries would do its own duties and maintain their contracts and such, making sure nothing would massively change the balance of power in one way or another. So, but not everything was as it seemed but not everything was as it seemed to be, because the concert of Europe kind of started to divide along what's called ideological lines as soon as like, it started becoming, more of the triumvirate started distancing itself between each other, the two factions of the more conservative monarchies and the more liberal democracies. While some liberal democracies of France and Great Britain, United Kingdom, as it's actually known, weren't in any formal alliances. They just kind of had an unspoken agreement of they enjoyed somewhat liberal ideals, but the countries of Russia, Prussia, which became Germany, and Austria, which would later become Austro-Hungary, did have a formal alliance called the League of the Three Emperors. Let me make sure that's right real quick. My notes here. Yeah, the League of the Three Emperors, which lasted until 1873 to 1873 to 1887, wherein what's it called, due to the competing interests of Russia and Austria and the Balkans, it kind of broke apart. But actually, let me do a little addendum to my other phrase about Great Britain and France. There was no official alliance until 1907 between those two. But yeah, after 1807, Germany did go. Not 1807, 1887. Germany did reapproach the Russians to get a reinsurance treaty to make sure that they they wouldn't get attacked by them, so they wouldn't have a two-front war against France and Russia, which was the strategy of Otto von Bismarck, because he always warned about that, even ever since the founding of Germany, or ever since he got into office, as the Chancellor of Prussia and then Germany. And Germany and Austria still had their alliance after Russia broke off, which was renamed the Dual Alliance. Then, which became the basis of the Central Powers, that started World War I, which would later include the Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria, and a few other minor countries. But as a side note, the Dual Alliance did become the Triple Alliance for a moment, which included Italy, but then Italy backed down as the crisis of World War I was happening, which I'll explain later, because it was Italy said it was a defensive pact, but Germany and Austria thought it was just a military pact. But anyway, let me just explain. Now get to explaining how the Triple Entente was formed. It was all started after Germany, after Germany had new leadership under Kaiser Wilhelm II, got into power and fired Otto von Bismarck. Otto Bismarck resigned. Was forced to resign by the Kaiser due to differences in policy, and so Germany alienated Russia due to some trading disputes, through the treaty expiring, and many other things between Russia and Germany that made the tensions rise between the two countries. And seeing this, France started to approach the Tsars of Russia with his liberal democracy, but the Russian wasn't until the French government executed some Russian anarchists in the country. Imprisoning some of the Russian anarchists in their country, including one Mikhail Bakunin, I think it was. Yes, which softened the blow of the Tsarist regime of them aligning themselves with the more liberal French democracy. And in the meanwhile, what's it called? It was meanwhile in Japan and Great Britain had a formal treaty in Asia to make sure Britain and Japan would never have to go to war. At this was already after France and Russia made their treaty, so when the Russo-Japanese War happened, France and Britain were very on edge because neither one of them wanted to go to war with the other. So they decided, well, before tensions could rise, they decided to settle every type of dispute they could have overseas and at that moment, so there won't be any type of battles or any type of mishaps between the two countries due to any tensions. And these these agreements were actually called the Anton Cordial, which was the name for the alliance of the allies of World War I, the Entente, Triple Entente, which this ties back to what's it called? No, let's tie it all back to the one part I mentioned earlier of the Balkans, where in 1905, after Russia getting thoroughly kicked by the Japanese Army and Navy, the Austro-Hungarian Empire decided to fully annex the I think it was the territory of Bosnia-Herzegovina into their realm, which flared tensions with Russia severely. But since Russia was still reeling from the war, they had nothing they could even do about it, other than stir up Slavic nationalism in the Balkans via Serbia, Bulgaria, and many other countries of and trying to use that propaganda to warn them of the Germanic imperialism of Austro-Hungary. And to make things worse, there was another crisis that flared up tensions between the coming alliance of the Entente and Central Powers, which was called the Second Moroccan Crisis, which in 1911, the Germans were angered by the French and Spanish imperializing Morocco, considering they wanted it for themselves, and Spain and France decided to split Morocco between what is now modern-day Morocco and Western Sahara, or let me just put a pause for you with a little anecdote with that, because it's disputed territory. But with that, not helping the already strained Franco-German relations, which were pretty strained due to Germany, which was formed by Prussia taking the province of Alsace-Lorraine from France after the Franco-Prussian War. And so at this point, Europe was nothing more than just one gigantic powder keg with all these tensions melted together, just to make a big old mess of anger. With not helping it was the countries were extremely militaristic and as you probably can tell, imperialistic. So it all needed was one spark, one tiny thing to blow it all up, which as many probably know, was the Balkans. And you already know why each country wanted to have wanted to regain their might, or wanted to go to war. Germany was a newly formed country at the time and wanted to claim its place in the sun, become a great empire like a great empire like Great Britain and France was. Austria-Hungary and Russia wanted control of the Balkans, as I mentioned before. The French and Russians were reeling from the loss of their wars of not only Franco-Prussian but the Russo-Japanese. Like literally, only one that had no reason to go to war was Britain, but which later on then they kind of went to it. But yeah, now we get on to the day, how it truly started, the true spark of World War One. The Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary. To give a little note real quick before I get on to that topic, Archduke is what's it called? He wasn't like the ruler, Franz Ferdinand. That was his father. Like his father was actually the ruler, who was the Emperor of Austria and King of Hungary, because Austria-Hungary was a dual monarchy. Yeah, a little fun fact right there. But yeah, so in what's it called? In the capital of Sarajevo, like to explain something, there was this group. It was a pan-Slavic group called the Black Hand, or also known as the Union or Death group, which was a Serbian and Croatian group mostly, but it also had other Slavic ethnicities that wanted to oust the Austro-Hungarians from what they considered rightful Slavic lands and create the pan-Slavic nation, which became Yugoslavia in the 20th century, or later on in the 20th century. And what's it called? It was very influential in especially Serbia due to what's it called? One influential Colonel Dragutin Dimitrijevic, apologies if I butchered that name, was actually the organization's leader under the name Apis, which was a holy bull in Serbian, if I am getting that right. And he along with the other Slavic terrorists, wanted to get rid of the Archduke, seeing the Archduke as the main way to get rid of the Austro-Hungarians from their lands. Well, what they perceived to be their lands, at least. And what's it called? And the Archduke was about to come visit Sarajevo, which was which made Apis start devising the perfect plan with the Black Hand group to assassinate the Archduke. The Prime Minister of Serbia, Nikola Pasic, apologies again if I butchered that, he heard of his general's plan and tried to warn the Austrians of this gigantic conspiracy to kill the Duke in Sarajevo, Archduke in Sarajevo, but he was so cautious with the letter, with how he worded it, it was really confusing to the people who just got the letter, and nobody understood, and it was too passive and just was way too late, because by that time the Archduke was already preparing to go. So now we're getting on to the moment. It's June 28th at 10 o'clock. The Archduke arrived in Sarajevo in a train to meet the mayor and the police who were going to escort the Duke in both separate vehicles. As a note, the Archduke and his wife, Sophia, were in an open-top car. That will be important for later. So there was like one, though there was an attempt by the local military to, actually multiple attempts where I'll mention one later, to escort the Archduke, but it was no luck. because they didn't want any. They didn't want to upset the citizens due to what's it called? They didn't want to upset citizens with them just having soldiers marching around and making it look like a military state in their own city. And what's it called? So it was only left up to the police of the area to protect the Archduke, which at that day were very few in number. Excuse me. And so after hearing of the after the visit, being very publicized due to the Archduke being a very well-known member, there was many Black Hand members, or also known as Union or Death members, planted throughout the route to try to kill the Archduke. And there was one as the tour started. There's one assassin that threw a bomb at around the area of the Mostar Cafe in Sarajevo. He chucked a bomb on the Archduke, but luckily it missed the man. But unluckily, it hit the car behind him, and it's what's it called? And reports it wounded 16 to 20 people, with Franz Ferdinand being one of them. Like he got hit by some debris. The assassin tried to escape. He jumped over a bridge and took some cyanide, but it was older, and then he was beaten up and taken into custody. And then during his tour, what's it called? The Archduke planned to make a speech alongside the mayor of the town, which he made before. Before the speech started, he like lambasted at the pretty much venting his frustrations out at the mayor, saying, Mr. Mayor, I came for a visit and I'm greeted with bombs? It is outrageous." Though with his wife whispering something into his ear, which we do not have any records of what she said, the Archduke Franz calmed down and said, "You may speak now." He waited quietly during the mayor's own speech, while soaked in the blood the assassins inflicted it on him due to the injuries. And though he made some what's it called? Though it was a surprise for him to see that what's it called? The assassins the people of Sarajevo were actually plotting for him, like cheering and all that, and he was shocked, and he made some edits to his speech saying that what's it called? Talking to the people, being happy that they're giving him a standing ovation. So after the speeches, they what's it called? They went into the town hall, and Franz Ferdinand and the mayor and a few of his what's it called? The people protecting him, including his chamberlain. For those who don't know, chamberlain is actually a soldier or person that protects the royal family. And what's it called? They discussed what they should do next. One person the chamberlain actually suggested that they should wait what's it called, until the soldiers arrived at the town hall, which was pretty much immediately shut down by the what's it called? The mayor saying, in which he rebutted, do you think Sarajevo's full of assassins? And then afterwards, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand decided to actually go on a trip to the hospital to visit those wounded like himself, by the assassin's blast. He also had it is rumored a lot of the other assassins, though, as a side note, a lot of the other assassins either had cold feet or actually just kind of got cold feet or ran away or such. And one of them would be the what's it called? The one that actually did the job, which was the which apologies, I missed, which was his name? Well, what's it called? Apologies, I lost the name because there was another member of the Black Hand. He pretty much assassinated him, but let me explain that in a minute. So Archduke decided to go to the hospital where people, and what's it called? His driver started driving him around Sarajevo, and he took a wrong turn. And weirdly enough, one of the would-be assassins was at one of the sandwich shops around town. He was eating a sandwich with his pistol in his pocket, like his waistband, thinking to himself like, "Oh, why did I get cold feet?" And he being upset with himself. And then as he was eating a sandwich in this little cafe in the town, he saw something he never thought he would see, which was the Archduke himself, along with his wife, Sophia. So after a moment of shock, he sprang to action. He jumped from the seat, grabbed his pistol, and shot the Duke and Sophie himself. The Duke Franz Ferdinand himself, and what's it called? Sophia, his wife. It is rumored that his last words were the Archduke's last words were, "Sophia, don't die on me. I live for the kids," or something along those lines. In which afterwards the assassin was arrested. The assassin ran away into the night. That's created tons of turmoil inside the already fractured and decaying Austro-Hungarian Empire. And thus slowly from there, from the Austro-Hungarians giving the ultimatum to Serbia to basically give up control of their pretty much asking them to let them go inside their country with the Austro-Hungarian police, go inside Serbia and investigate the whole entire country to make sure that Serbia had nothing to do with it. To Germany giving Austria-Hungary a blank check, which meant that they had a free guarantee by Germany that they would back them no matter what, which Italy did not do because they did not like Austria-Hungary because they owned the province of South Tyrol, which the Italian state thought in another one called Istria, because they believe both of those were rightful Italian clay. But besides the point, then Russia vowed to protect Serbia against the Austro-Hungarians, in which the Germans vowed to protect the Austro-Hungarians, and then the French vowed to join the Russians, and then from there, and that's how pretty much the war started. Also, on a side note, you probably already know this, but how Great Britain got involved in the war was actually Germany doing a plan, kind of a bastardization. Apologies. A kind of messing up of their old plan by this one general called von Papen, which was the Schlieffen plan, where they would go through the Netherlands and Belgium to invade France which would make their invasion smoother, but they went through only Belgium, which ruined the plan. So Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully this wasn't as rambly as I think it was, and hope you enjoy this first episode of AusterCast history. In this first episode, the ties that bind us. Thank you so much. I hope again you enjoyed. I'm thankful for want to give a thank you to North Code and everybody in my YouTube channel and such, and thank you so much for watching. Take care.